Hi, I'm Rhonda McBride. The year started out with record warm temperatures and appears to be headed down the same road for the rest of the year. For Alaskans, climate change is an issue that won't go away. That's why we thought we'd bring back a show that we brought to you this spring, when photographer John Thane and I took a trip to Unalakleet. From the appearance of frogs to grasshoppers, this part of Norton Sound has seen many changes, big and small, in recent years, worth revisiting as we head into a new year.
Alaska, where there are old triumphs, but also new frontiers, with challenges as great as the state itself, but a belief the best is yet to come. Bringing you the faces, the places, and the spirit of the last frontier. This is Frontiers with Rhonda McBride.
Welcome to our program. The Arctic sea ice has always been a vast frontier, perhaps even more so today, as a warming climate creates even more challenges, especially for those in Unalakleet who experienced one of the strangest winters anyone can remember. Due to a lack of sea ice in Norton Sound, hunters had trouble catching ugruk, their beloved bearded seals. And Unalakleet found itself wondering if life without ice is the new norm. Here in Unalakleet, the weather is the scenery. A canvas that changes constantly. But no one expected to see so much open water so soon. The ice went out on the Unalakleet River on April 27th, something that doesn't usually happen until mid-May.
Right there. Got it.
Carl Erickson says the unusually warm weather has thrown everything off kilter.
Let's see. There's a couple.
The king crab he's come to haul away seem to have moved on.
But they're big ones, so we're happy with that.
Living off the ocean, a lot harder to do now. The lack of sea ice shut down the winter commercial crab fishery.
The regulations require that you can only fish through the ice, and Unalakleet had no ice.
What's left? A sea of uncertainty.
The timing has changed, and the distance that we have to travel has changed.
Like many elders, Jerry Ivanoff considers himself a weatherman. He can look at Barrow Island in the distance and give you a forecast. What's it telling you right now?
It says life is good, the ugruks are swimming, it's going to be glass calm.
But the island can't tell him why the weather has changed so dramatically.
The snowbank is as high as the church.
It's hard to imagine snow as high as the steeple of this church, when this winter, these hills hardly saw any snow at all, which put the caribou out of reach for snow machiners. Sissy Katugan is one of those without caribou meat. Part of why she goes to great lengths to document what's going on.
It's for future generations, is having this information and this knowledge.
As the Unalakleet tribe's environmental specialist, it's Sissy's job to track climate change. She has several cameras positioned around town to take a photo every day.
Every single day.
Sissy wants to compare this year with last year.
Magic.
In a few months, the tribe will give a report to the community about the overall rate of change.
There was ice last year, and then no ice, no snow to be seen this year.
Current conditions in Unalakleet, overcast skies, 36 above.
Sam Tawark tells listeners the wind has shifted.
We've been blessed with some ice.
And pushed the ice closer to shore.
I think ice from the Pikmiktallik Bay just showed up.
Now Jacob Ivanoff can go out and get a seal. Maybe.
If you look at the ice, you can see how thin it is and how smashed up it is.
Jacob calls it junk ice. Strong enough to support the weight of a seal, but definitely not thick enough to retrieve and butcher it.
I'd have no way to get to him, and I wouldn't want to shoot it and waste him. I can't even ice hop. It's just too thin. It's just been too warm to even think about it.
There are several seals in this area. Jacob cruises around to find the right kind of ice.
Yeah, this one is thick enough.
Ice at last, but the seals are suddenly elusive.
I thought I saw its head come up.
Jacob scratches the ice to arouse their curiosity, but the seals are on to Jacob. By now, he would have taken 4 or 5 seals. He would like to get one to share with an elder and a single mom. Jacob is not alone in his frustration.
Here, scrap to do that one.
Up in the hills, Donna Erickson and Lorena Penipchuk dig for a root known as masu,
You got it up? Just pull it,
also known as Eskimo potato.
And when it's woody, like this, it gets too not edible.
Yeah.
So it's a little too late. We passed the window.
Normally, that window is open through the end of May. So they console themselves by finding harmony, if not with the land, then with their voices. What's happening with the weather is both unclear and troubling. And yet on the beach, 2 young men take time to enjoy the warmth of the evening.
It's really nice, but what the heck is going on?
A question with no easy answers. To appreciate how ice is used as a staging area for hunting seals, take a look at this footage from the Alaska Film Archives. This was shot in the early 1950s. It shows a Unalakleet hunter returning to the sea ice with his catch. A dog team is waiting to carry him and his kayak across the ice all the way back to Unalakleet. Now, that would have been impossible this year. Waves lapped the beaches of Unalakleet all winter long. This footage is from the Fred and Sarah Mackintosh collection. Fred was famous for his paintings of Arctic life, and now you can see where he got his inspiration. Well, hunters also need sea ice to hunt for walrus, and that's been a real problem in Savunga on St. Lawrence Island in the Bering Sea. Savunga is known as the walrus capital of the world because they're the staple of the diet. Also, ivory carvers make their living from the tusks, but fewer walrus are harvested every year because of the changes in the ice. The Food Bank of Alaska makes regular deliveries to the island and plans to include another village this month. Savunga is one of about 50 communities in Alaska relying on food banks for emergency food. Alaska is the only state in this federal program which has to ship by air. Up next, the science behind the warmer weather. Alaskans have reported many changes. Everything from early birds to early breakups. Is this the new norm?
We're talking nearly 100 years here of records, and this was the warmest winter for the statewide average temperature.
Up next, scientists explain the reason behind these warmer temperatures.
I just want cremation.
Cremation specialists in Alaska.
Can I have a service before cremation?
Our staff is committed to serving your needs.
I just want something basic. The simpler, the better.
Specializing in simple cremations. Whatever your reasons are for choosing cremation, call Cremation Society of Alaska, 277-2777, or in the Valley, 373-8627, and on the web at alaskacremation.com.
Today, your heart may have been tweeted, snapped, shared, group texted. and damaged from the harmful effects of secondhand smoke. Exposure to secondhand smoke increases your risk of heart disease by up to 30%. Your heart was made for sharing, not for heart disease. It's your heart. Protect it.
Whistles are so important. They help very sick kids like me feel better when nothing else can. They give you a reason to fight harder, get stronger, and have fun with your family away from the hospitals. Thank you for making my wish come true.
I was really nervous, borderline scared at the starting line at Mount Marathon. And I had done stories about it. I knew the mountain, but these are a whole different breed of runners. These Alaska trail runners, they're serious. To look up and know, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get to the top of that, and that feeling when you get to the top, it's changed my family's lifestyle, because now we're out climbing mountains every weekend, and there's just always somewhere new to go, somewhere else to explore, another mountain to climb.
Our state is headed for the warmest year on record on the heels of the warmest winter in at least a century, in which the statewide average temperature was 10 degrees above historical norms. Scientists say what happened this winter has set the stage for even more warming. Fairbanks saw the trumpeter swans arrive several weeks early, and in weather that they could get out and enjoy.
It's amazing being here right now in a sleeveless shirt taking pictures of them. You know, that's not normal.
Usually we don't have standing water yet. Usually we have 8 inches of snow on the field.
I have never seen a winter like that at any time in my life.
This type of winter could be a preview of the future.
Here at the International Arctic Research Center, scientists are trying to explain what everyday Alaskans observe this winter.
If you take his expression for N theta and you lump everything together.
Some of the best minds from all over the world are working here because what happens in one place affects another. Some countries are on board as official observers.
So countries like Korea and Japan have that status.
John Walsh is the chief scientist here. He's been involved in climate change research for 40 years, long enough to see the connection between sea ice and climate. And while the ice formed in the Arctic this year, it didn't stay put.
You can see how this area north of Alaska was pretty much iced in.
That was back in 1980. Today,
now there's 400 or 500 miles of open water all around the coast of Alaska, coast of Russia.
So what is behind this combination of disappearing ice and warmer temperatures? Several factors. A huge pocket of warm water in the Gulf of Alaska, which in turn raised water temperatures in the Bering Sea and changed wind patterns, coupled with El Nino, which produces warmer temperatures, and on top of that, ongoing climate change.
And that combination of the three is what created this so-called perfect storm that put us into record territory with our temperatures over the last 3 to 6 months.
Did you ever expect to see a winter like this in all of your 40 years of studying the Arctic?
Not in Alaska. The speed or the pace of the change is hundreds of times faster than we would have expected.
Changes with consequences felt all over the Arctic. From disappointed skiers at Alyeska to premature river breakups, earlier and more devastating fire seasons. Scientists say we need to plan for the impacts of climate change, yet also look at how we can turn them to our advantage.
It saved on the heating bill?
2016 could be our wake-up call, the year that changes everything. Still ahead, adapting to what could be the new norm. We'll talk with two men trying to put the pieces of the climate change mosaic together, what they see in the big picture.
The Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium provides comprehensive health services for Alaska Native and American Indian people across our state. In addition to world-class care at the Alaska Native Medical Center, our work delivers health services for rural Alaska. From cutting-edge technology for the best care possible, to modern construction of clean water systems and health clinics, to health training and outreach that honors our culture, our vision is that Alaska Native people are the healthiest people in the world.
Air travel for Frontiers is provided by Pen Air. When business or recreation takes you anywhere across the state, Pen Air is there. The only family-owned airline serving Alaska. Pen Air, the spirit of Alaska.
You don't have to live in a big city to be a foster parent. You don't have to have a big house, a fancy car, or lots of money. What you need is a home. What you need is a heart that can open to a child who needs you. Won't you become a foster parent today? A child is waiting. Call 1-800-478-7307.
KTVA News, winner of 9 2016 Goldie Awards, presented by the Alaska Broadcasters Association, including the award for Best Public Affairs Program. KTVA, the voice of Alaska.
New Monday. Time to get up. Do we have your attention now?
Kids are up.
Because TV's #1 new comedy is on a roll with the one and only Billy Joel. Boom, Shaka Khan. A new Kevin Can Wait. Then on Man with a Plan.
It's quiet.
A little too quiet. Something's afoot.
And that rug is on the wall.
A little too on the wall.
Are you done, Columbo?
A new episode after a new Kevin Can Wait. CBS Monday.
When it comes to climate change, the world's eyes are on the Arctic, which has the most rapid rate of warming. And joining us, we have two longtime observers who are on a mission to track changes across our state, both big and small. Michael Brubaker with the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, and Larry Merkuliev, who has been tracking these changes for a long time. And Larry, I want to start with you because you've been telling people about climate change for decades, what people have been observing. Why is it that the general public doesn't have a sense of what's going on?
The best that we can determine is that people feel powerless. They feel that it's too big. We need to leave it to governments or some other agency to deal with it. We can't deal with it except to make small changes. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons.
Now, we're looking here at some of the time-lapse photos that were captured in Unalakleet. Must be great to have these tribal organizations be our eyes and ears.
Well, I think Unalakleet's a really good example because, as you can see from the footage, there's a lot of climate change impacts happening. Not only in the ice, it's happening on the land. It's the seasons, it's the plants, it's the lakes. But they're doing a lot of really innovative things. They're trying to understand the change happening by looking at the footage with the time lapse, but they're also building break walls, and they're phase relocating up onto the hillside, and they're putting in alternative energy systems. So there's a lot of innovation.
So they're adapting.
They're adapting.
Well, let's take a look at some footage that was provided by Naomi Ivanoff, Jacob Ivanoff's wife. Here he is getting a seal. We showed you earlier how much trouble he was having, but this was back in April. He's never hunted this early. But you can see here how the sea ice is really important in being able to handle the seal. You know, Larry, you're a seal hunter, and a sea lion hunter out in the Pribilofs, down in the Aleutians. Can you relate to Jacob's frustration?
Absolutely. I mean, sea lions have declined in the last 30 years by 80%. And sea lions were to us like the bowhead whale are to the Inupiat, bison are to the Plains Indians. And because of that, we're self-regulating. The older, experienced hunters are not going out hunting as frequently as they used to, so it leaves the younger people to fend for themselves, basically. So they're going out there and breaching protocols for proper hunting of sea lions.
And putting their lives in danger?
No, not so much there, because we hunt from land to sea, where we hunt only male sea lions. and where we wait for the waves to wash the body ashore. And these younger hunters are ignoring the weather, for example, and going out hunting anyway. And they're boisterous and very active, where we used to be very quiet. And so it's fundamentally changing the structure of traditional ways of linking up older and younger people.
Now, you've been on the front lines of climate change, trying to talk to people about it, but I guess some elders said you need to change your message?
Yep. You know, I used to coordinate the Bering Sea Council of Elders, which is composed of the most revered elders in 7 regions of Alaska, and they told me, stop trying to save the Bering Sea. I had spent 25 years on that issue, and focus on preparing our people for what's coming. Because
in other words, it's too late.
We're going to have a hard time. Yes, it's too late to try to save that ecosystem the way we knew it. And it's going to cause hardships.
Well, speaking of ecosystems, I want to go back to Unalakleet and show you this video of a frog. He's a tiny little guy, but he's a big change because they have not historically had these little frogs in their lake. You know, and of course, we're seeing all kinds of things like this, different things, different critters showing up in different communities.
That's right. I mean, we've started a local environmental observer, this thing called the LEO Network, to try to provide a tool where community members can share observations about significant change when they see it. And some of these changes, they're almost always interesting. And sometimes they're important for wildlife, they're important for the ecosystem, and they can be important for people's health. So that's why we want to improve our ability to watch for this kind of change when it happens.
Well, not only do we have new critters show up, you know, there are sometimes infections and various things that people are observing as well with some of the salmon. Why do we need to keep an eye on that? Now, here's a bunch of jellyfish that died in a pool. This came from the LEO Network.
Yeah, it's become a real priority for the tribal health system and also for state government. And for the federal government, I think there's a lot of people right now working on finding ways to improve our ability to work together. Some of these changes, like here you've got some salmon with a parasite, some of these changes we know happen in Alaska, but sometimes the question is, why is it happening in new areas? Why is it happening more than it used to? What kinds of stressors are causing that? And how does it affect people's confidence in their food and their ability to harvest the food resources that they need?
And then the Alaska Native elders all over are concerned about the viability of the salmon, that we may see the time when salmon disappear from all the rivers of Alaska.
I know on the Yukon River, Kuskokwim rivers, you know, they've had to implement some very severe restrictions on king salmon. The run looks a little better this year, but at least the forecast. Yeah. But people are still worried about the big picture.
Yep. There's inter-annual variability, so it varies from year to year, but overall, you're going to see declines of every single thing that has been central to each of our cultures.
Now, crab is part of an economic boost for many rural communities, especially in your neck of the woods. What are we seeing with the crab harvest?
Well, because of ocean acidification and overfishing, those two combined, the salmon stocks are going down.
Now, one of the things that we haven't had a chance to talk about are the impacts on basic infrastructure in Alaska, affecting, you know, buildings, roads.
Well, and we're having to rethink the way we design things. I mean, just look at the topic of Arctic engineering. We build homes so they'll be warm and well insulated. We don't build homes so they can be easily cooled when it's a super hot summer, or when it's smoky outside, or there's high pollen levels. Some of these things are affected by climate change. And we want to make sure people can stay comfortable in their homes, and we want to make sure that the infrastructure for water and for sanitation and for protecting seawalls, we want to make sure that that's built properly as well.
Now, we've done this massive sort of overview, this big sweep of the issue. What's the takeaway from all of this?
Well, I think the takeaway is it's more important than ever that we listen carefully to the types of changes that people are seeing in communities all around Alaska, and that we find ways to work together with topic experts, and we find ways to apply tools so that we know what's coming our way, and so we have adequate time to understand them, to benefit from the good parts, and to prevent any negative impacts.
And the elders are talking about we need to reestablish barter trade networks that we used to have all the way to South America thousands of years ago, that we're going to need that sharing between regions during
That's because
time.
the food's going to show up in different places.
Yep.
So, you know, culturally, spiritually, we're just about out of time, and this is a big subject, but how is this change impacting people?
It's culturally and spiritually, well, we can go on and on about how it is affecting it. I chaired the Indigenous Knowledge Sessions for the Global Summit on Climate Change, and they concluded that number one, it isn't climate change, it's climate crisis. They're feeling it all over the world. And number two, governments are not going to act fast enough, so we need to mobilize.
But what about sort of the spiritual component? I mean, is that causing anxiety?
Absolutely. It's causing anxiety in every single community in the state. Where we used to have, what characterize our cultures and spirituality is that we have an intimate connection with the environment, and that connection is being severed.
Well, we'll talk about this more in a web extra, because I think this is alone. You could talk for hours on that subject. So thank you very much for being with us, Larry Merkulieff and Michael Brubaker. But before we go, we want to thank the people of Unalakleet for their warmth and hospitality, and for their help in bringing the story of what life without ice really means. Thanks for joining us as we explored a new frontier that we're only beginning to understand. We'll see you next week.